Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. Um, this video is going to be a bit long because it's kind of a tutorial on a subject that I've been thinking about for a while, and I know a lot of you have from time to time thought about this as well. And it's when can you use as an individual deadly force to protect yourself from a mob, and what is a mob? Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I've never played one on TV. This information, the definition of a mob, comes from thelaw.com as part of their law dictionary. And the case studies that I'll talk about are from the archives of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. And you can go to uscca.com and look those up as well. The legal definition then of a mob is an assemblage of many people acting in a violent and disorderly manner, defying the law and committing or threatening to commit depredations upon property, that means breaking stuff, or violence to persons. So that defines what a mob is. And they don't have to be armed. It doesn't say anything about what they have in their hands or doesn't have in their hands, because multiple people can hurt you. And we'll talk about that in the case studies. So a simple thing, and this is not one of the articles in USCCA, but all of you have seen Westerns, right? Where some bad guy is now in jail and the sheriff is standing there and a mob shows up and they're vigilantes and they say, "Sheriff, give us the culprit, and he's a horse thief and we're going to hang him now." And the sheriff stands out there with his shotgun and other rifle or whatever and says, "I'm going to shoot the first person that steps across, comes up the stairs." The sheriff can do that because all of the people, everyone there, is there for the same purpose, and that is to break in and take by force the prisoner. Today, people mobs tend to have other people inside of them, and these case studies will give you some examples of how to think about that. Now, the first case study is coming from 1925, and it's called the Dr. Sweet case. And a guy named Ocean Sweet, black guy, moves into a neighborhood in Detroit. And white folks don't like that, and they start, gathering outside of his home multiple times, even with cops there, and threatening to do damage to the house and to people in the house. The mob gathered on the second night. People are throwing rocks at the house, breaking windows. Several mob members rushed the house, but the day before, Dr. Sweet had asked some friends to come over with their guns. And when the members of the mob rushed the house, the defenders opened fire on the mob, wounding a man and killing another, which by itself back in 1925 is like, okay, you got black men with guns killing white folks, right? So obviously they were arrested, and eventually they were acquitted. They were acquitted after a second trial. The attorney was Clarence Darrow. Okay, so so they had a good guy. So if you're a black person and you are in trial for murder, shooting into a mob, you need to have the best attorney that the money can buy. The legal basis for their acquittal was where several are apparently preparing to join an attack on the defendant, in this case, Dr. Sweet. His right of self-defense extends to each participant. So that means that whoever is part of the crowd that's rushing your house or rushing you, each of them is equally responsible, and each of them can be dealt with deadly force. You don't have to be careful in selecting your target. You shoot whoever's closest to you, and you keep shooting until there's only one left. And when there's one left, the disparity of force is gone, and that means that you have to stop using deadly force. So the summary of that is, if an unarmed citizen uses a firearm to defend himself against an unarmed mob, that means they don't have to have guns, sticks, pitchforks, or anything. No matter how many participants there are, no matter what threats the mob makes, or how many fires they're setting, a lawyer, an overzealous lawyer, is going to say they were unarmed, right? And why did you fire on unarmed people? Well, case number 2 is of a Texas police constable named Darrell Lunsford, and this case shows the danger of multiple people against one person. The short story is, Lunsford was making a traffic stop. There were 3 people in the car. While he's talking to one person, another gets out and attacks him. The second person gets out and attacks him. He is knocked to the ground, and he's not a weak guy, but he's overwhelmed by 3 people. And then one of the 3 people takes his firearm, his service firearm, and murders him on the scene. About 8% of police officers are killed in the line of duty the same way. Someone takes their own firearm and kills them with it. Let's talk about blocking traffic. You know, you've seen people protesting, peacefully protesting, and they will lay down in front of traffic. Well, in the next couple cases, there was an abortion clinic, and they were protesting in Sacramento. Some decided to lay on the ground in front of a car. That wasn't a threat to the driver. However, the car was being now surrounded by violent people who were pounding on the windows and trying to get in. And rather than stay where the driver was, the driver just rolled over, or literally ran over the protesters that were in front of the car. But because the other members of the crowd were violent against him, the people laying on the ground assumed then, in the eyes of the law, assumed responsibility, because they now were part of the activity to stop the car and then make the passengers available to the mob. So by nature, protests, even though peaceful, can turn violent. And so you can say, well, does that mean never go to a protest? Well, it means you need to be careful. But in this case, the driver was not found guilty of rolling over the protesters that were in front of them. This next case is about Michael Strickland, who is a conservative blogger. This was 2015 and 2016, in Portland, Oregon. Well, that should give you a hint. So what Michael did was, defended himself against a mob who was coming after him. He did not shoot anyone, but while he was taking video, the crowd became hostile. He pulled out his pistol and covered those people who were becoming hostile to him. They backed off and went away. Then he holstered his weapon and left. But then he was charged with 10 counts of unlawful use of a weapon, 10 counts of menacing, and so forth. So he was charged with several felonies. The reason was he went to this event. He knew he was going to go to this event. There is this legal concept called mutual combat. So by knowing that he was going to go there, by knowing that he was going to be in harm's way, he took multiple magazines of ammo for his Glock, and that was used against him because he clearly was preparing for combat with someone. And so that tended to void his claim of self-defense by taking extra ammunition. The other thing he did was, by scanning the crowd, that's where he got popped for the menacing charges, and which is the same as brandishing. And unfortunately, if he had done it at low ready, he probably would have gotten the same effect. But instead, he was at high ready and pointing the muzzle at people. And the people that filed the complaint were bystanders, or so-called bystanders in the crowd, and they were the ones that filed the claim of menacing to him. The last thing, he never called 911. And if you've heard my videos before, whoever calls 911 first wins. You are the victim. If you call second, sucks to be you. So let's come back and review this thing about a mob. Today, anyone that threatens you, whether it's one person or multiple, with serious bodily injury or death, and it's unavoidable, then you can use deadly force against them. If you use deadly force or threaten deadly force with a mob, you really, really, really need to have a good attorney, because somebody is going to have a good attorney against you. And as a side, I highly recommend that you get self-defense coverage like I have with USCCA, or U.S. Concealed Carry Association, because they are right there, Johnny on the spot, with an attorney to help you, as long as you are not breaking the law doing what you're doing. A mob is inherently multiple people are inherently dangerous, and that's where the disparity of force defense comes in. If you can avoid what would profess to be a dangerous situation, then do it. That doesn't mean that you cannot counter-protest. It doesn't mean that you cannot protest. It doesn't mean that you cannot have a rally or attend rallies. But the prudent thing to do is that if things start to heat up, certainly don't engage. But if you find yourself in a case where you're surrounded and you cannot escape, then, and you are armed, then you can use deadly force to defend yourself. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope this has been somewhat helpful. Just go get yourself some good self-defense coverage. Again, I prefer USCCA. Look them up. They have 3 great packages. It's very reasonable for what you get. So with that, I want to thank everyone. Put your comments down below. If you are not a subscriber to the channel, I ask that you do that. Share if you think that the content is worth sharing, and like if you happen to like the content that I make. So with that, as always, thanks for watching. Carry on.